Rand, I don't know if I've been more excited about a player in summer scouting than this young man, LaNorris Sellers out of South Carolina. Redshirt sophomore, 20 years old, turned 20 on June 23rd, I believe. So he is young, 6'3", 230. And I have him as a late day two-ish guy right now, and that is solely on the arrow pointing up and what could possibly be. As a runner, he might be one of the best running backs in the SEC because of his ability to run through people, uh, make guys miss in space, drag defenders down the field. I'm not talking about defensive backs. He can drag linebackers down the field too, if he needs to. And at the combine, we talked to a lot of folks that had faced him, SEC edge rushers, and to a person, they said he was one of the toughest quarterbacks they faced. Got a lot of baby Cam Newtons from them, so I'm running with that as a comp. And also Jalen Hurts as a runner. I think he's just as destructive as Jalen Hurts. I don't know if either Jalen or LaNorris are explosive as runners, but big arm, physical, can throw it through a wall. We just talked about Malik Murphy and his big arm. He actually layers the ball pretty well to second level on second level throws and deep throws with zero anticipation. And I want to see that develop. And I thought he struggled at times or wasn't looking to get through his reads because it'd be one read not there. And then he knows he can just run over people. But again, he's only 20. He's a redshirt sophomore. So there's a lot of room for improvement. And he's supposed to be a great young man. So I love this kid. What did you think of LaNorris Sellers?
And I felt the same way, and maybe this is a gift and a curse, if you will. But when I was watching him, I felt like I was watching a slightly better Anthony Richardson. And I think, I think with the same thing with Anthony Richardson, where they have some growth. There's some growth to be had as passers, but I think Sellers at the same point. I think Sellers is further along as a passer than Anthony Richardson was at the time. But like you said, man, this guy, like, everything he does just jumps off the tape, from the way the ball jumps off of his hand, his arm strength, his athleticism. You hear it referred to as ball carriers in terms of receivers with run after the catch skills or running backs, guys being a tough tackle. You never really hear the quarterback position being labeled as that, but this guy is a tough tackle. And let's not just laminate over his athleticism, because he has plenty of that, and you'll see that. But this guy has wild throws. And for our viewers, if you want to see some of these wild throws, go watch the Illinois game and look at plays 51 and 62. You talk about pure wild throw. Those two plays will immediately jump off the tape. And again, we talked about in the previous guys, talking about guys that have transferred to different schools. LaNorris Sellers turned down some big offers to transfer to stay at South Carolina. And if we're being honest, like, he threw a lot from a muddy pocket at South Carolina because at best the protection was shaky. And so you talk about him being a great young man. He wants to continue what he's doing and what they're building in South Carolina. So kudos to this guy for that. But I really love and where he's at. I think where you have him, I have him just slightly above. I have him at number 7 on my list, with the same thing, like you said, with arrow pointing up. Excited to see how he grows and matures as a passer and as a pure football player. But you talk about having dynamic qualities and traits, and this is what you look for in the NFL, especially in this new age NFL with the Josh Allens and guys like that. And how they've grown and grew the position is not just drop back and pass. And even though you need that part of your game, but these guys that can do both, man, they're a problem for you.
No, I agree with everything you said, and thank you for your explanation, because you might hear some noise in the background, getting some work done in my house. I'm trying to keep up with the Ran Carthons of the world, and it is not cheap. I'll just say that. So if you hear some buzzing, that's what that is. The other thing that you talk about the AR comparison, and that's a fair one. The good news is LaNorris has played a lot of football, even though he's only going into year 3. He's been able to play that football. The offensive line, at times, if we're being fair, was not great at South Carolina. So he had to maybe he was a little gun shy. We've seen that with quarterbacks at every level that, 5, 6, 7 weeks in the season, they're tired of getting hit. So they're not waiting around to trust their tackles will be able to block those edge rushers. So I love him. And I think there's an opportunity that if he has a big season, are we talking like top 32?
I mean, there will be an argument for it. And I would say this, and this is something for us, for you and I, this is something for our viewers to watch moving forward for him throughout the season. What's the difference between LaNorris Sellers and Jalen Milroe?
One is a little bit younger going into this season. I think LaNorris is a better athlete, and he's
But
bigger.
that's what
He's
I'm
6'3", not 6'1".
but that's what I'm saying. Um I just drew a blank. Um the quarterback was just Milrow. Milrow
Yeah.
just went day 2. And so, like, why not for this guy? And we've talked about what Seattle could potentially be doing for him, having packages in for him. Maybe that's the same role for LaNorris. But like you said, he is young. He is young, and he's played a lot of ball. And for what we know, he could be in college for 2 more years. And now we're talking about a top 10 potential pick in 2 more years if he continues to ascend like we think he can.
Yeah, and we just saw glimpses of Anthony Richardson, and that's in part why he went so high. We didn't see the full package, and perhaps that's something to do with it. So I think if this is a big year for LaNorris, he is going to be a lot of fun to watch. You have anything else to add so you can not hear all this noise back here?
Yeah, I can keep going. So, but to your point, like we don't hear anything, or at least I don't hear anything, and so I'm good. I'm more worried about housekeeping coming and knocking on the door at this point. Trying to put me out of this room because I do have to check out after the show. But no, but I do. He was a fun watch, and and that's why I said when we're talking about Anthony Richardson and the comp for there, that's why I said it's a gift and a curse, right? Because it's the gift and what the physical tools and traits that led to Anthony Richardson being the 4th overall. But I don't want to say that where Anthony Richardson is at this point, coming into year 3 as a quarterback and the questions that he has, I don't want to put that on LaNorris Sellers until we see what the final product is going to be.
One last thing I'll ask you before we take a break is that LaNorris doesn't throw a lot of anticipation. How do we see that progress happen this season, if that's in fact what needs to happen for him to get to the next level?
And that was one of the second notes that I took that I have in front of me is he's not much of an anticipatory passer. In my estimation, I think anticipation is more of an instinct thing. I think you either have it or you don't. Now, where you can get better with anticipation is just being more comfortable within the offense, knowing where the receiver is going to be. If it's a speed out, where are they breaking it to? If it's a comeback, is it 18 back to 15 and just trusting that those guys are going to be there. But again, we talked about it on the previous segment of the show. This guy has an absolute cannon. And so he doesn't have to throw with much anticipation because he can squeeze it, in those tight windows and he can muscle the ball there. So even if he improves just a smidge with anticipation, like he's still going to be able to drive the ball and get it there. He just can't be too late patting it, especially, coming into the next level where guys are able to sit on it and jump routes. So who study, quarterbacks who study offenses and know what route combinations are coming based on down and distance.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mentioned Jalen Milrow, what the differences are between those two, because I think that's a conversation we're going to continue to have. He's a little bit bigger than Jalen Milrow, maybe a little better athlete, maybe better runner, not a better athlete, a little smaller than Anthony Richardson. Again, similar athleticism. But if he takes that next step, top 32 for sure, and it might even be like a top 15 conversation because he is absolutely electric.